I want to set people up for success and give their child all the tools they can get so that when they come to that age where, they are battling against all these distractions from sleep, that they have those skills to put themselves to sleep independently. And it's one less thing that they're having to battle against. Neurotypical children, this is something that is pretty chronic. And so really for me, that's another thing about sleep training, is really giving that. And I look at it as giving confidence, because you're giving someone those skills that they can then use themselves to put themselves to sleep versus needing someone, to help them. This really says to your child, I believe you can do this. And I know you can do this. I'm right here. I'm outside. I'm in my room. But, and also I'll say too, which is your child, if they're sick or if something's actually wrong, you'll know. This is sleep training. What this does is this helps a child on a regular night have the skills to put themselves to sleep. And ultimately, it helps you decipher when your child actually is sick, because after sleep training, if they are still waking, typically it's because of something else.
Just a little taster of what is coming up on the show. But first, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. And also tell your friends and family about this podcast. Please let us know in the comments if you would like to hear any particular topic in relation to sleep or health. Then I will create a show especially for you, just for asking the question. So let's get on with the show.
Before we start today's video, please be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.
Welcome back again to another exciting, empowering family health podcast. And of course, the purpose of this podcast is to empower you to be the better version of yourself, to give you more informed choices, and so that you can have a healthier and happier life, and to show up so much better as your true authentic self in the world. And that's the purpose of this podcast, empowering families so that you can provide the guidance and the way and the example for your children to be the best version of themselves, because after all, our children are our next generation. I'm very passionate about that. I am super excited about our guest on today's show. We have Lydia Harden on the show today. Lydia Harden, sorry.
No worries.
Lydia Harden. That's how you pronounce it, isn't it, Lydia?
Yes, yep.
Okay, and let me read out Lydia's bio, and you'll see why I'm very excited about Lydia. We're going to be talking all about sleeping for infants and so much more, and for the parents. And Lydia is going to, oh my God, she is going to really blow up this whole conversation with this topic. So let me read her bio. So after 10 years of working with families as a childcare specialist and getting a master's degree in development and educational psychology from Boston College, Lydia started Slumberly to provide exhausted parents with both virtual and in-home overnight support to effectively and quickly sleep train their babies, because Lydia believes that both parents and children deserve to fully thrive. And the combination of her certifications as both a pediatric sleep consultant and a newborn care specialist allow her to take a holistic perspective when it comes to sleep and approach every family with a personalized touch that it takes to see the sleep training process through from beginning to end. Oh my God, now you can see why I'm so excited. Lydia, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I'm so excited to be here and just excited to chat with you and discuss all things baby and baby sleep training.
Yeah, it's so great. Lydia, obviously I'm a sleep science coach myself, and I work in this whole area of sleep, but you specialize in child helping children and infants sleep, which is a very specialized area. And my hat's off to you, because I can't even imagine what that. I've had my own children, and that's the experience I've had. But it is really a crucial area, because I've come across many parents and they're exhausted. So it's having an impact on them, not being able to sleep if their child isn't sleeping well, and it just has that whole vicious cycle. But tell us, Lydia, before we get into this conversation, why sleep consultancy, why infants, and why are you so passionate about this area? Tell us your story.
Yeah. Well, it is funny. I when people ask, how I got into it, it's like so many things. You end up, at a point where you don't even kind of know how you got there, and it's all these channels and things that lead you there. And it's nothing. I was never a small child saying I wanted to become a sleep trainer. I originally thought I wanted to become a college professor and teach, child development and family functioning. And as I was in grad school and I started to be a teacher's assistant for some courses, I realized I didn't want to be working in the classroom. I wanted to teach and work with families directly. And so I ended up becoming a night nanny shortly after graduating from my master's program, and sort of fell into that like so many things. I'd worked with children for years. So I became a night nanny and started working overnight with babies. And, this is for families who can afford to have someone there 5 nights a week, 12 hours a night. So it's a certain section of the population. And I found that I was having success getting those babies to sleep 12 hours a night by 12 weeks. And that was kind of the goal with my families. I would tell them that, this is what I'm working towards. And, I loved that work, and I loved working with families so directly, and I just adore babies. But I found that kind of service is so particular to a certain section of the population, as I said. And I wanted to work with more people, and also work with the people where, their kid might be 12 months old, or their kid might be 22 months old. The oldest I work up to is 24 months old. And so I thought, I need to figure out how can I work and help with those people and solve their sleep problems with older babies. And so that's where I went, and it went from there. And I started to develop my programs and my methods, and it's all research based. And the more I did it, the more I just loved working with those families. They're shorter jobs, so it's a short term, usually, just about a week long. And it's more rewarding for me, and I absolutely love it. So
I can see that, and that's incredible. 12 weeks, oh my God. Because for a newborn, and like they have so many interruptions in their sleep. We know this with babies, and I mean, there's so many reasons why they don't sleep, and we'll get into that. And I can really see. So you always had that thread of importance about family health and the unity of the family, and how that all. So I can really see that. There's so much I want to unpack from that. But one of the things, Lydia, that you said is the power. You mentioned it in some of your notes. The power of sleep training. Can you bring us through why it's so powerful, or what do you mean by the power? Because it is like there is a critical element in this. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah, so it goes into a lot of the work that you do, Joanne, is the idea of what does this mean beyond the baby? What does it mean for the whole family, and as how they function as a whole? Because that really is what I'm so passionate about, is not just creating this, safe world for a baby, but creating a world that benefits the entire family. And so with sleep training, I always bring it down to 3 things. It's reconnection, rejuvenation, and restitution. And what I mean by that is, for the reconnection, sleep training, the goal is, oh, sorry, yeah.
Reconnection.
The goal is,
yep,
I said reconnection, yep, rejuvenation, and restitution. And I'll explain. So what I mean by reconnection, so the goal with sleep training, the goal I always work towards with clients is a good 11 to 12 hours where your baby's in the crib. And, babies naturally wake up 6 to 10 times a night, but sleep training gives them that ability to put themselves back to sleep, that skill that will benefit them their whole lives. And so what that means is that, you're taking a family who, I've worked with many families where the beginning part of the night, they put their baby down for bed. And for the next, sometimes 2 to 3 hours, the baby's awake, trying to go back to sleep. There's crying. The parents are in and out, in and out. And my goal is to help the baby learn how to access those self-soothing skills so they can put themselves back to sleep. And it means peace for the whole family. And so what I mean by the reconnection part is, it offers those families, if it's a 2-parent household, it offers those parents a time to reconnect with each other versus that stress of in and out and sitting on the edge of their seats, which often happens, waiting for the cry. Do we have to go in 5 times tonight? Do we have to go in 7 times? And, it's not about denying your child parental responsiveness, because parental responsiveness is the cornerstone of, good parenting. But this ultimately is ensuring babies get the sleep they need for, their health. So that leads me into my next point, which is rejuvenation, which is, again, both for parents and babies. And so this means for parents, they get that time to relax and basically rejuvenate themselves, because, parents give so freely from their cup all day long. And I truly believe, right, to wake up the next day and do it again, and to be your best self, to have that time where you're allowed to maybe take time alone or read a book or take a bath. That's so important. And the same for children, even babies need time alone. And so honestly, that time at night is so critical for them too, to be able to, not even physically restore, but also even just to get some space. We don't ever think about infants needing space. We always think about closeness, but even infants do need space. And so then the last thing is restitution. And it's the idea of restoring something to its original state. And so this has to go to more of like the biological and physiological benefits of that sleep, and, that consolidated sleep. So for parents, this means, as Joanne, in your work, so much of the healing that our body goes through happens at night, and the toxins being cleared out. And so that for parents is that restitution. And for children, the majority of their brain development happens while they're sleeping. So that sleep is so critical for infants. Synapses are being formed, the brain hemispheres are being, the connections being formed, and a lot of that healing's being done, and also memories, being consolidated. So it's so important. And that's really what I mean by the power of sleep training. To me, it's such a bigger picture than just teaching a child to sleep. It goes so far beyond that.
Yes, it is. And I love how you broke it down into those 3 different points. It made it really clear: the reconnection, rejuvenation, and what was the third one? I can't even read.
Restitution.
Restitution. Yeah. I've never heard of that been put that way before. Restoring to.
I know you can use it in other ways, which is why I'm hesitant. It means other things, but it also means restoring something to its original state. So anyways, yeah.
It's brilliant, because, and yes, I talk about that in my line of work as well, because, it can have that ripple effect. I say to people, if you're not sleeping well, it affects not just your physical health, your mental health, but your relationships. You wake up in the morning and your spouse didn't sleep well, and he needs his cup of coffee, and he's narky, and he's triggered, and you don't want to say the wrong thing, and shouting and screaming, and like, so it has that impact. And he goes into work, and he's like that with his people in work. And now the mother is left being a certain way, and now she's going to be a certain way with her kids, and it just has that knock-on effect. So it affects every single area of our life, I do say. It
does.
How you handle finances, your health, your eating habits, your choices, everything. So so really get the power of sleep training, and how, if a young baby is not sleeping well, the impact that can have as well. I love what you said about the baby having its own space too, and the self-soothing. And I think that's as parents, we try to do everything and wrap our children in cotton wool and do everything for them, but sometimes we have to let them figure it out themselves, even as a young infant. So I really get that.
Right.
So so it's brilliant. So Lydia, the whole issue of sleep deprivation, it's really an epidemic in and of, I don't like using the word.
No, it's so true.
Of itself, and so I think we've kind of touched on the importance of laying a strong foundation. But can you go into, is there any other areas in your profession, your line of work, why a strong sleep foundation is so important?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Again, I always talk about parents and children when I discuss sleep training. And again, this is, as you said, this is what your work is built on this, and the idea of how chronic sleep deprivation really is. And, in the United States, I was trying to find correlating statistics for Ireland, and I didn't really do such a good job.
America is always better. I always use the American stats.
Or better or worse in this case. I don't know. We're talking about a negative statistic, so it could be. But one of the statistics was that it just really is so powerful to me, is that 25 to 40%, it's a big range, but they say Dr. Owens has done studies, and he found that 25 to 40% of children in the United States suffer or struggle with chronic sleep problems. And this means it's behavioral sleep problems. So it's not something based on sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome. This is truly behavioral. And what that means is children who don't have the skills to put themselves to sleep, so to fall asleep independently. They might need intervention to be able to eventually fall asleep. And sometimes that can take hours, which means it's putting off the onset of sleep. It also means poor sleep quality and just duration, so how long the child is able to sleep. And so it's so chronic. And then for adults, it's for everything from, we've talked about this at length, which is the digital technology, which is so invasive and ever present. Yeah. And then you go beyond that now with remote work, where people are, those boundaries are not so clear anymore between work and home. And then even further, you can go with parents, where if your child, let's say, and I'm talking about children who are over 14 weeks of age, that's when I start sleep training, is at 14 weeks. So, before that, chronic, waking throughout the night or repeated waking throughout the night is expected for early infancy. But beyond 14 weeks, that's kind of what I'm referring to. And those parents, they may be getting up 6 to 10 times a night. And so you add that into the list of things that adds to that sleep deprivation. So again, it goes back to what you're saying. It's really that whole picture of sleep deprivation, which is, the parents are now bickering more. They're not performing as well at work. And they may not even be able to bond as well with their babies. It's funny. I've one of the biggest concerns I hear from parents who want to work with me is, how will this affect my attachment with my child? And what's actually interesting is they found, the converse is true, that many times after sleep training in research that's been done, is that actually measures of bonding and attachment increase. And my, one can theorize, and my guess would be, when people are both rested, just like our relationship with our significant others, everything's better when we're well rested. So I just, I always say to people, the sleep training process, it's never easy, which is why, I feel it's so important to, if you need the help, to reach out for it and to work with someone. But the benefits are just innumerable. I mean, it's just, it's cheesy, but it's true. It's the gift that keeps giving,
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like, there's so much there I want to unpack, like what you said about the child's development as well from a young age is critical, because their brain is developing and their bodies are developing. And, we see a lot of children with cognitive behaviors, brain neurodivergence, all this kind of stuff. And the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. And early brain development is crucial. In all of this as well, and who they become as adults as a result as well. And and even traumas I talk a little bit about, I'm not a trauma specialist myself, I have had experience myself, but we all have traumas to some, it's just different levels, and we all respond to them differently. And even traumas from a young age as a child, if it's not dealt with, or it's caused them not to be able to sleep as a result of, again, this can have an impact later on, and an inability then to self-soothe ourselves, even as, teenagers, young adults, that ability, and, things can trigger so much more easier, and it's caused us not to be able to sleep. It's leading to depression, anxiety, and we see a lot of that in the world at the moment. So caring for ourselves and giving ourselves the time to slow down and have that calm heart. And as you said, with the parents and the bonding with the young children, when we have that calm heart, our children are more open to accepting us or allowing that love in, and because a child can sense something quicker than what we try to understand it logically as. Children like sponges. So I think it's important for us to get our sleep as well, so to create that bond, that deeper bond connection with our children. You spoke about electronics as well, which is a big area at the moment, and maybe we can just touch on that for a minute, because
of course,
there's younger children now owning mobile phones from 10 years of age, and I see even little kids, I see kids in restaurants, and the parents give them the mobile phone to watch their cartoons while they're having their dinner. And I know
pervasive,
it's a habit now, you see, and it's all habits. And so this is having an impact. How do you find this is having an impact on children when it comes to their behavior and their sleep, and it's like a nearly, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I think, the way I look at it is, we have so many things going against us when it comes to sleep. And I think last time we spoke, Joanne, we spoke briefly, but you said something which stuck with me. I believe you said, we need to protect our sleep,
Yeah.
which is we need to go out of our way now to protect our sleep versus, in the 1960s, people were getting 9 hours in their bed, right? And now people are logging 6.5. So we're going on a downwards trend at this point. And so with all these things going against us from, digital technology, as we said, and being the biggest, I would say that again, with sleep training is, not all babies need sleep training, but I would say a lot of babies, the majority don't end up kind of figuring it out. There are a lot of babies who do need some form of support in that area, whether it's, just gentle nudging or more formal.
Mhm.
But where I'm going with this is I'm saying basically I want to set people up for success and give their child all the tools they can get so that when they come to that age where, they are battling against all these distractions from sleep, that they have those skills to put themselves to sleep independently. And it's one less thing that they're having to battle against.
Yeah.
Because you do see so many kids who are struggling with attention. And as you said, a lot of this goes back to sleep. Their brains aren't being able to clean out all the toxins at night. And I'm not talking about actual, disorders. That's a separate topic. But for, neurotypical children, this is something that is pretty chronic. And so really for me, that's another thing about sleep training is really giving that. And I look at it as giving confidence because you're giving someone those skills that they can then use themselves to put themselves to sleep versus needing someone, to help them. This really says to your child, I believe you can do this. And I know you can do this. I'm right here. I'm outside. I'm in my room. But, and also I'll say too, which is, your child, if they're sick or if something's actually wrong, you'll know. This is sleep training. What this does is this helps a child on a regular night have the skills to put themselves to sleep. And ultimately, it helps you decipher when your child actually is sick. Because after sleep training, if they are still waking, typically it's because of something else. It's not this question mark where you're running through your list of things. What could this be? Is this a false alarm? Am I going to go in and they're going to be smiling at me after, fussing and I feel like I've been, duped, as some people say, or are they actually sick? And so it does kind of take the guesswork out of it. I know I went a little off there, but
kids are very good at playing the game, and boundaries, aren't they? They're brilliant. They're great at it
because they're so intelligent. They're so highly. I always say, never underestimate a baby's intelligence. Because they are it's incredible how quickly they learn. It's amazing.
Even as a young toddler, a young infant, even, they just see, they can sense and they're just so good at picking up the energy,
Yes.
And I believe that's what's lost in an awful lot of children, and I love what you said about the confidence part as well with the kids, because instilling that confidence in them, being able to, because they don't have as much anxiety, they're able to self-soothe and they feel more grounded in a way. So they're not as needy. Do you know what I mean? And have that neediness, they're not as anxious, and you've got a more confident child then, So what are you finding, Lydia, are the key biggest mistakes, if you like, that parents are doing with their children? Let's get into that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say there's two main things. And one is it's thinking that the more tired a baby gets, the better they'll sleep, right? So sometimes, we push ourselves as adults, like, I have trouble falling asleep, so I'm going to push myself till 11 p.m. and I'm just hoping that'll help me fall asleep. And, it's really not true with children specifically that the phrase sleep begets sleep with babies. So this idea that, if a child, specifically a baby, is overtired, that their body starts to produce cortisol, which then in turn makes them fight sleep. Yeah. And so what I always say to parents, I say, this might be the last thing you're expecting me to say, but if your baby is chronically having issues falling asleep at bedtime, try an earlier bedtime by 30, even 60 minutes sometimes. There's a good chance your baby's just very overtired. So that's the one thing that I think, that misconception. And then the other one, this actually ties into another point that I was going to discuss, basically ways to help your baby sleep better from birth. And this just ties into that whole idea, which is if you respond too quickly to a baby making sounds while they sleep. So you may think your baby's awake. Let's say it's the middle of the night and they start fussing and you see they're in the bassinet next to your crib and you see their eyes fluttering. You might think, of course, instinctively, oh my gosh, they're awake. So you go pick them up. And what I try to explain to parents is that for babies, early infancy, that babies only go through 2 phases of sleep. And this is prior to about 4 months old. This is light and deep sleep. And that light sleep, that's REM. So that's truly active sleep for babies. And what that means is they might cry out. You might see their eyes flicker. They might actually have their eyes partially open. They might be, if they're not swaddled, they might be moving their arms around. And so often parents might be unintentionally waking their babies up if they respond too quickly. So I always say observe. So that's the biggest tool I think people can have with infants is just to sit back and give it a minute just to see what happens, because then you can start to learn your baby's cues and better understand, are they truly awake? And it won't do any disservice to your baby if you wait 30 seconds or a minute. It's not going to do any damage. So I always say
nearby as well.
Exactly. And so those are, I think, the 2 biggest things is kind of that, we want that responsiveness, that parental responsiveness is so foundational, but the over responsiveness can sometimes undermine that baby's ability to learn how to self-soothe. Because, babies, they're learning the whole time, little bits and pieces teach them how to self-soothe. So that's what I would say for the 2 kind of biggest misconceptions.
I was going to say I love what you said about the baby's sleep structure. I think when we understand a baby's sleep structure, it's so different than ours. They spend more time dreaming and in the deep phase, because obviously they're doing a lot more growing and developing from a young age. So it makes sense. And then as we get older, our deep sleep is more about maintenance and recovery and all that kind of thing. And so it makes sense. And even teenagers is a whole other topic. Their whole sleep pattern is very different.
I don't. Okay, that's interesting.
And it's natural, because their sleep cycle, when we talk about the circadian rhythm, and even the circadian rhythm is different as we grow older, and even in young infants like newborns, they find their circadian rhythm after so long. And that's what I've in my learnings.
No, yeah, you're right. At 9 weeks, that's about when they start to produce those circadian genes. That's exactly right. So
we say, they're getting into a pattern. That's why we say that, he's after finding a sleeping pattern. He's settling down into a sleep now, and it could be, a few weeks after or whatever. But it's important to know that that's the circadian. They do find their circadian rhythm, and this is why I think it's important to bring your baby outside on a walk during the daytime as well.
So key.
Yeah, because it's because light information is telling your body when it's daytime and nighttime. This is our circadian rhythm. But something else that you said about the dreams and the deep sleep. I touched on that. So I think that's really important. If we understand that their sleep cycles are different than ours as well, it makes sense. And I think that gives us more power as well when we understand that. What do you think, Lydia, about the bottle feeding? Do you have any thoughts on the bottle feeding? Because I know a lot of people will knife feed, and the baby wakes up looking for the feed then, and it's nothing more annoying, and I know I tried not to feed my baby during the night, and it worked for me. What do you say about bottle feeding?
Oh, do you mean like ending night feedings, or the difference between breast and bottle?
Just feeding the baby in general, whether it's breast or bottle, just feeding the baby in general. Like, when should you stop feeding the baby and be used as a crutch, for getting
at night? Great question. There is such a range, and I would use the word controversial, because when it comes to sleep training, it is such maybe inflamed. I could use inflamed topic, right? So people have such strong opinions. And so I always say to people, if you don't want to sleep train, that's fine. If you do, though, I'll support you. And, I always say really upfront with people, this is the way I operate. This is the experts I follow and the research, I base my practice off of. But if you don't believe that, that's fine. But this is, I always kind of make it clear that this is really what I'm working off of. And the same is true for feeding at night. So a lot of not my actual sleep training method, but my methodology, or the framework within which I work. I'm trying to explain this. I formed it off of, so there's a group of pediatric nurses in the United States. They're called the Moms on Call. They have a really incredible business. Basically, they do consulting work that ranges from feeding to medical care to sleep training. And they're incredibly knowledgeable, and they've been in the field for, over 30 years. They've written books. So they're some of my favorite experts. And they actually believe in completely ending nighttime feeds at 12 weeks, as long as your baby's 12 pounds. And ending night feeds means 12 hours of no feeding. So you're really giving their digestive system a rest all night, which is really important for helping develop that circadian rhythm. Because then your body is not going to work on digestion all night long, which takes away from the repair and restoration of other aspects of your body. And so that's really, I have changed their approach a little bit. I actually start sleep training and end night feeds at 14 weeks. I just found that there's something called the Moro reflex. Have you heard about it?
The moral reflex? No, I haven't.
Moro, M-O-R-O. And it's also known as the startle reflex. And it's what infants are born with. So in sleep, they'll basically, if they're not swaddled, they'll startle themselves awake. So that's why swaddling is so key. So what I found is when you end the swaddle at 12 weeks, in my experience, I found that they still had the Moro reflex typically for a couple of weeks. So I extended, and now I offer my sleep training services both in-home and virtual, but for babies starting at 14 weeks. And that's when I help people night wean. So I give them a plan, and we, whether that's breast or bottle, and they night wean. And then by the time we start sleep training, that's night 1, no more night feeding. And what you find is that, through the weaning process, which is typically about a week long, babies naturally start to eat more during the day. And there's also certain requirements. So a baby needs to be getting, for the first year of their life, between 24 and 32 ounces a day. Yes. So there's ways that you can sort of calculate and make sure that your baby's getting enough sufficient feedings during the day. And so that they're able to go all night, and you won't have to be concerned and stressed.
I always found my baby, when she ate very well during the daytime, I was very glad and content, and I knew she would sleep well that night, and she always did. If she was coming down with a cold, or she wasn't eating well or whatever, it kind of added to the night upsets. And so I did find, if she slept well during the daytime, had plenty of good naps during the daytime, and that can sound counterintuitive, but that's what I found it really helped us sleep, because sleep is a natural process. And I think what we do during the daytime, setting ourselves up, going for that walk, exposing your baby to light during the daytime, less electronics, and even you using your mobile phone beside your baby, that can have an impact as well. Oh my God.
It's so true. I know, it's so true.
And all these things that we do during the daytime can set us up for the natural process of sleep, whether you're a child or an adult, I think. Sorry, were you going to say something there, Lydia?
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just agreeing with you, because everything you said, I mean, you're a sleep expert, and clearly your knowledge extends to children, because what you said is exactly correct for babies, which is specifically the nap part, that if children aren't getting sufficient daytime sleep, their nighttime sleep is negatively affected. Yes. And even beyond that, it's interesting. I'm always looking at studies on sleep and trying to figure out, like, what's the newest information coming out. And they did a study, and I believe it was in 2016, but they looked at naps and the duration of naps and how that affected babies' learning and memory. Yeah. And they found that the babies who were napping sufficiently during the day had a much increased ability to remember basically they were shown tasks or examples, and then they had to repeat or point things out. And those babies performed exponentially higher than the infants who weren't napping as well. And so it just goes back to what you're saying, that importance of daytime sleep, and you really can't undervalue that.
I love that you brought that up, because something I find with a lot of teenagers, they cram for exams. If they're doing, we do the leaving cert here, and I think it's called the junior cert. In my day, it was called the intercert. But they'll be crammed.
Is that a test of sorts?
Yeah, it's like a final end of year exam in our schools, and it's a big exam. It's a big state exam, and a lot of the teenagers are a lot of stress, anxiety around the time. Right? And one of the biggest things that are told is get sleep, but they want to stay up all night cramming, and then they find they can't. They have a memory block. They can't recall the information. So memory is retaining the information and then being able to take it out as well and recall the information. So sleep helps with that. And again, it sounds counterintuitive, because you're spending time sleeping doing nothing, as what you think, but it's actually helping to lock in the information and then to be able to recall it out as well. And when you sleep better at night, you're not as the amygdala, the emotional brain, is not as amplified. And if your amygdala emotional brain, if you like, is amplified, you're not going to be able to access that logical center to be able to, for critical thinking, decision making, planning, and answer exam questions. So many reasons why your teenagers need to sleep well when they're doing their exams.
You can tell them they can still cram, but just cram and then go to sleep.
Cram before your bedtime. We're always go to bed on time. Absolutely. Lydia, we're running out of time. Tell us, so what does your work, you do virtual work with people, but you also do call outs. Just tell us a little bit about what that looks like when you like, how far do you travel, all that stuff?
I mean, I travel wherever someone would want me, so literally anywhere in the world. But in terms of the United States, I've worked as far as San Diego. A lot of my jobs have been obviously in New England, just based on how marketing goes. So you got New Hampshire and New York and Massachusetts, but really anywhere. I think the virtual is easier for people and it's more affordable. But the similarity between the two and what, because I'll put it this way, like I found a gap in the market when I was looking at what people offer for sleep training. What I found is a lot of them, they're incredible programs people offer, but they didn't offer the overnight support. And I find that so often you can prepare a parent, you can give them the information, you can give them the knowledge and the method. But then when it comes down to it, in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder for that parent to follow through. So for both of my options, obviously the in-home, I'm there with you all night, walking you through it or doing it for you, depending on what type of job it is. But for the virtual, I'm accessible all night long for 12 hours. So that means if you have any questions, something unexpected happens, you can shoot me a text and I'm right there letting you know, giving you that information or that peace of mind. And so that really is, I think, some of the difference, just because of how important I believe like that accountability is for people when it comes to sleep training.
That's it, the accountability. And I love that because you go through the process with them. You're not just giving the theory stuff. You're actually going through the process. And I think that's where we're most vulnerable, or parents can be most vulnerable, is when they're going through that, especially to wake up in the middle of the night and they're tired and what have you. They have peace of mind at night, even going to sleep. So they might even sleep better themselves. They're not sitting on the edge of the bed for noise, knowing that you're
which is the goal, right? For them to sleep while they can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it makes sense. And Lydia, I just want to say the work that you're doing is just absolutely incredible. And it takes a big heart to do that work.
Thank you.
To care, because you're offering families like this is a whole family you're talking about, and the people that they interact with during the daytime. So it's a big deal what you do. And I think it takes a lot of trust, for parents to hire you, because they're bringing you in on their family. I mean, that is not really easy. So it takes something to be the kind of person that you are, Lydia, for people to take you into their home and trust you with their tiny little baby, so it's just incredible what you do, Lydia, and I really hats off to you. Like it's obviously you love what you do. Lydia, tell us where people can find you.
Yes. I'm on Instagram, so at Slumberly Sleep Coaching, and my website is slumberlysleep.com. And I put all my information, all my contact information on my site, because I want people just to call me up if they were ever interested in learning more. So I make myself really accessible and love just chatting with people and answering questions.
Great. We'll put all your links in the show notes as well for people to find that. So Lydia, we're going to finish up. Can you give us one last, maybe just to wrap everything up, maybe one empowering thought or one key thing that you can, a message that you can give to parents to really help them either take you on or for them to find somebody else, or something they can do to really help their young child or infant to sleep better at night and to have a massive impact on the family?
I would say one of the biggest things is really that when it comes to children in general is the idea of boundaries that then create freedoms. So, we set up certain boundaries so that a child feels safe, and that opens up a world of freedom for a child and for a family. And so really the idea that, by offering these boundaries around sleep and creating a safe sleep space and helping your child understand, what it means to sleep and what nighttime means, that, it offers that child a world of freedom during the day because they are well rested and able to function at their best. And same for the parents. And so, if I would say to someone who's interested in sleep training that if you're interested and it feels right for you, that you should try to block out any of the guilt and any of the opinions of others, because if it's right for you and your family, that is what is the most important thing, I truly believe. And, if you're nervous about the process, there are many pediatric sleep coaches out there like myself, who are, with different methods too. So if you find, if you end up speaking with me and it's not the right method, there are other people out there. So it's just important that people find the support they need to help them reach those goals. I just hope that if people are interested, they don't hesitate, because I think it really is, it's a game changer for so many parents.
Yeah, and for the child as well, because it really reduces, other childhood behaviors or habits or whatever as they grow into a teenager and adult. Because really, when you have a very strong, good sleep foundation from a child, it really impacts your whole life ahead of you and your family.
True.
So
true.
Oh my God, this is so powerful. I have to go and run and pick up my child now from school.
This was so wonderful, Joanne. Thank you so much for having me. It was just great to talk with you. And I think, our worlds connect. It's wonderful. Like, we both meet in the middle in terms of our, areas of sleep expertise. And so it's also interesting to learn from you and hear about teenagers. And so just overall, really wonderful to talk.
And I love the whole idea of being able to collaborate. There's no competition.
Yes.
We want to help each other.
I know.
Different areas that we specialize in or whatever, but it all, there's so much overlapping as well. And it's just so important, if we can all sleep together, if we can all sleep well together, I mean, and everything, I need a little nap. If we can all sleep well, everything is better in our life, and that's the most important thing, because it affects every single area and every person in our lives as well. And our children really are our future, and that's what I believe in. So, Lydia, on that note, I'll say goodbye. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
I do hope you are enjoying these conversations, and to help me continue pushing these videos and audio podcasts together, I do have an ask. I do need support to help me to keep bringing you knowledge and insights. There is a Patreon link, patreon.com/empowering family health, or you can make a donation via PayPal. All the links are in the description and the pinned comment. You can do a one-off, or you can do a monthly support. So I'd really appreciate that. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Take care.